generating leads and business. Well, guess what? Anyone can go out there and spend money. If you don't have the right follow-up process in place, you don't have the right flow in the CRM, if you don't understand the intent of the consumer on that platform, you'll never be successful.
Hello, agentpreneurs, and welcome to today's episode of the Daily List Report. Really excited to bring on a brand new guest, Brett Ratkowski. I'm going to do this again. Brett Ratkowski, okay? And here's the thing, Brett's in the background right now, but I tend not to edit out my bloopers because, hey, this is real. It's a real show, real content, real topics. So apologies, Brett Ratkowski. He is a real estate agent, but he's also the founder of Optimized Real Estate. And we're going to talk about his story, which I think is really inspiring. And we're also going to talk about Facebook advertising, which is really where he's built a pretty amazing niche. While we're here, I'm going to pull up a couple things. YouTube, super popular channel that he's a part of, Real Estate Marketing Guys, 172,000 subscribers, puts me to shame on this show, so there must be some really good content there. Definitely check that out. Also, their website, optimizedrealestate.com. Again, all these links are below. Definitely check out what he's doing there. He's helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of agents find success with Facebook marketing and probably even beyond. And of course, we like Instagram at Brett Ratkowski. Definitely give him a follow there. And finally, of course, we're talking about Facebook. So he's also on Facebook and has a great following. So definitely check him out in all those places and learn about what they're doing. Lots of great tips and tricks. And as always, people like this are so giving of their time, right? He's here to share his learnings, his story. And I appreciate that very, very deeply. Of course, while you're here, and this is why I'm such a bad YouTuber, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click that little bell so you're notified of all future episodes. Okay, without further ado, let's bring Brett on. Brett, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me. I've been looking forward to this one for a while.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So we were actually introduced by a mutual connection, Camille Rose. Those of you watching right now that know that Camille has been on the show a ton of times, and she's been absolutely incredible. And she was kind enough to introduce us to Brett. So Brett, thank you for taking time to be here today.
You're very welcome.
All right, Brett. So here's the thing, right? We're going to talk about Facebook advertising. This is an important topic, and rules change, things change, tactics change, and all of that. But I learned something about you in the prep for this call, which is I think you have a really interesting story. So I'd actually like to start there. I love it when our guests take a moment to introduce themselves, but talk a little bit about your journey to where you are today. I think it's really interesting and powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that, I go from time to time where it's like I don't talk about it, right? Because it does get emotional at times, right? Just thinking and reflecting back. And so obviously full-time realtor, I started in 2010. Well, I wasn't full-time then. I got my license in 2010 and then went full-time in 2012. And I just didn't know anything about real estate, right? I was the typical real estate agent. Where do I go? Who do I follow? And signed up with a brokerage. They were telling me to do things. And I just didn't do anything. So long story short, went full-time. I had just a little bit of money that I had from a car accident, a settlement essentially, right? And I'm like, all right, this is the time. If any time, it's now. So I went in, 2 years went by, I lost everything, right? I was doing the wrong things at the wrong time. I just really didn't have a business or a vision of what I wanted in my business, and I wasn't taking action. So lost everything, had my car repossessed, was sleeping on my sister's couch for 6 months, lived out of a duffel bag. And it's funny, I just moved here to Nashville from Fort Lauderdale, and I found that duffel bag, and I'm like, I got to get rid of it. And my wife's like, no, you need to keep it. You need to remember where you came from, right? So sitting in our guest room, and it's there every time I go in there and I look at it, and I always thought about hanging it up on this wall where the pictures are. So when I tell this story, I have something to point to, right? And so went through there. I'm like, all right, I had $500 left. No plug here at all, but one of my mentors, Joshua Smith, went through his boot camp and essentially in 12 months, learned about Facebook, decided I'm going full in on that, partnered with some lenders in my market to give me ad spend, went full force on it, did 210,000 GCI in 12 months, and it was like 250 in 18 months, something like that from Facebook alone. So Facebook, I love it. I still help agents and still do it in my own business, and it's completely changed my life. But the issue is it's got to be done the right way, right? And so I always tell this story and hopefully resonate with somebody that's going through what I went through. that if you just keep pushing, I'm telling you, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's something I very much agree with, Brett, and you absolutely should do something with that duffel bag. I'm going to do something I've never done before, which I'm going to move my camera, and it's going to be hard to see, but those of you watching right now, there's a little blue picture above my AC unit here in the office, and what that is it's a coffee maker. And the founding of List Reports, which I haven't really ever talked about on this show, Brett, was really born out of the ashes of a failure. And we were struggling and we were trying to figure out what our path was going to be. And we had scraped together enough money where I was like, let's buy a coffee maker. Like we were moving off of the Keurig to this bean to cup coffee maker. And it's silly, right? It sounds silly. It's a $150 coffee maker. But when it came, we gathered around it like we had just won the lottery. Like it was the best moment ever. And it reminded us that we always have to celebrate the wins, but also remember where we came from, right? And so we turned it into a nice little picture. I've got it hung up on my wall, and I never forget that moment. And so definitely get that duffel bag, Brett, and put it up on your wall or do something. Because
I gotta do. Yeah, it was hidden in the shed in our last home before we sold, and it was just. And I'm like, even at one point, I'm like, I was on a live, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go find it to show people. Like, this orange bag still exists. I just didn't know where it was.
Yeah.
And then I found it. Like I said, I know exactly where it is now. So it definitely will. And when I'm in those lows, right? When I'm feeling like I don't want to do anything, I go look at it. I
That's
look
right.
in it. I feel, and it sounds cliche to say this, but I just hold on to what I didn't have, right?
That's
Like
right.
that is my why, is never going back to that place that I was at. It was a
It's
horrible time in my life.
That's right, right, and everything on my walls reminds me of something, or it came from a trip, or it was a gift, right? One of our guests, who's a YouTuber, her channel just blew up after she came on this show. It was just the right confluence of events, and she sent me a really nice note, and I have that framed on the wall as well. And Camille talks about this. She talks about, I'm going to butcher this, so she's going to kill me, right? But it's like, hacking your environment. And this is what we're talking about, Brett, right? Is you hack your environment, maybe it's decreasing clutter, but maybe it's putting things like your duffel bag or my coffee pot, right? Or a letter from a YouTuber that hacks it so that when we see it, we're reminded of something, either a place that we never want to be back to again, right?
Yep.
Or a place that we want to go to, right? Or just a healthy reminder. So I love that idea of hacking your environment. Brett, my follow-up question to you is, you found yourself, and I've talked to a lot of people like this, right? You had nothing, right? You had basically lost everything. At that point, how do you continue? Because you made an important point, which you said you just got to keep going, keep trying, keep going, keep going, because there's a great book called Thinking in Bets, right, about this, right? But a lot of this is odds, and there's a lot of mitigating factors that contribute to our success or our failure. So if you focus on the inputs, you will eventually get there. How did you manage to push through? How did you manage to sort of continue in spite of the circumstances?
So for me, it was understanding, and Camille, obviously with coaching, this was later, like I realized I was holding on to stuff from my past. But in that time, I didn't know this, now I knew, but in that time for me, so let me tell you the story of how my car got repossessed, and that'll explain this, right? In the time I was going between my sister's house and my now wife's house, we were just dating at the time. We weren't, like, nothing was serious. I was just staying there every once in a while. And the Dodge Charger RT I had at the time, we woke up and she walks out and she's like, Brett, where is your car? She's like, I think somebody stole your car. I knew I was 4.5 months behind on payments. She didn't, right? I was out whining and dining her and trying to have this relationship, but I was lying to myself and I was lying to her. And so I ended up, we were on our way to go to breakfast that morning, and I just said, you know what? A gut feeling told me, like, just tell her the truth. Because she knew something wasn't right. So I told her, I said, hey, this is what's going on, right? And this is what happened. And it was repossessed. It wasn't stolen. We had lunch. The main thing is she didn't judge me for that, right? She was upset that I had lied to her, but
Yeah.
It was, and she understood why I didn't tell the truth at that time, right? And so in that moment, I'm like, this is the one. She is the one. If she's good, and her first response was like, so how do we get it back?
Yeah.
Right?
Nice.
What can you do? And so for 6 months, she didn't have to do this. She's like, all right, you're going to drop me off at work every single day, and you're going to go work, and you're going to pick me up from work every single day until you get your car back. Right? And that right there, so for me, it wasn't like I need something better. I knew her story and it wasn't great. She didn't come up with a great life, and I wasn't leading her to that life that she deserved. And that was why I kept pushing forward, was because of her in that moment, not judging me for my own faults and helping me decide that I have no choice but to push forward and get that car back. And I ended up getting it in 2.5 months. I probably should, the amount of money I spent, I probably should have just let it, but it was that, like, just proving to her. And now we've been happily married 3 years, the best relationship I've ever been in. And we live a life now. And it was because of, in that moment, that one person believed in me, which now my wife. So that was what pushed me. That may not be for you, but always know that there's someone out there that believes in you. Even if you just need to reach out to me in a moment. I've had people that watch interviews like this and I tell my story and they reach out to me. Always here. There's always somebody out there for you.
Oh, that's amazing, Brett. And I think what's important about that, well, A, congrats. You found an amazing woman. So that's amazing. Two is that you found your why, right? And this is something that I think a lot of people don't take the time to understand. Some people are very self-motivated, right? And they sort of can do it for themselves. Other people in your case, right? You were doing it for your future wife, right? You might do it for your kids. You might do it for your parents, right? A lot of times, the thing that weighs on me the most, the thing that pushes me forward, interestingly, though I have a family and I love them deeply, is I have a team of almost 100 employees at List Reports, right?
Yep.
And I look at them and I'm like, wow, they are counting on me and the other leadership in the company to make sure that they can put food on the table and they can get to where they want to go. So whatever that is, you have to find that. And Brett, you're showing it right here that you can be sort of in the ashes, right? In the crucible, and that's enough to motivate you to get out. So thank you for sharing that, Brett. I appreciate that backstory.
You are very welcome. I appreciate you bringing it up. I know it's not, we talked about it back scene, and that's where it is. And I love, Camille has gotten me out of my comfort zone of like holding that, and people need to hear it, right? Because
I do.
My goal has always been, if I can change one person's life, I'm good.
You and I are very much aligned on that, Brett, right? On this channel, I don't chase views, I chase engagement. And if it changes one person's life or shapes their perspective, I'm good to go, right? We're not in this for creator awards.
Exactly.
So let's transition a little bit, though, because as I mentioned, I love to give our agentpreneurs out there some, real practical kind of tactical stuff. So let's talk a little bit about Facebook advertising. And let me sort of set the stage here to get you to react to a couple things. Okay. One is that Facebook generally, right, is on a slightly downward trend, okay? And what I mean by that is, yes, they've lost some engagement. Two, there's a public perception that I think is challenging for Facebook. I don't think Mark Zuckerberg as an individual has a great reputation. There's increased privacy concerns. There's a lot of people politically who are now looking to break up tech companies. So there's just a lot of sort of negative inertia. And then there's shiny new platforms. Clubhouse is interesting. I'm exploring that now.
Love Clubhouse.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And there's a ton of real estate agents on it. So if you guys aren't on it, go check out Clubhouse. I'm thinking about doing something there myself. And you've got YouTube and you've got Instagram, so on and so forth, right? And the rules have changed, right? What you can advertise and how you can target, especially for real estate, because of the laws at play here, fair housing and whatnot. It's a challenging platform. So I just vomited a bunch of stuff on you, Brett, right? But just sort of talk a little bit about how our agents out there should be thinking about Facebook, now and as a platform to invest in.
Yeah, so to go back, yes, there is negative energy out there in the world about social media in general. Doesn't matter what platform, right? Specifically Facebook, because Mark Zuckerberg owns obviously Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, right? And they are being, and he, like you said, the public persona of him isn't the greatest today. It was back in the day when you first started. But in the end, we have to understand that with all the negativity and all that, we still go to the app every single day. We are still, I don't want to say addicted to it, but there's a reason we want to connect with other human beings, especially in this, during a pandemic, right? That's why I think Clubhouse is huge, because it's audio back and forth instantly. You can connect with somebody, right? And so, but just understand that we want that. In times of downtime, when we have nothing to do, we want mind-numbing things. And so just understanding that no matter what platform it is, there are going to be millions and millions and millions. They could say, hey, we're shutting down 50% of our ad platform. People are still going to go there, and people are still going to market on there. So just understanding there are those that don't like the privacy issues, and there's some like myself, to be honest, I have nothing to hide, right? So just understanding that individuals will still always, as long as it's there, will still go, because it's been a staple of our life for the last 10 years, right? Or however long exactly it's been.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So, let's talk now about agents out there who, I know a lot of agents who have dabbled in Facebook ads, right?
Yep.
It's I don't want to say it's so easy to buy, but it's easy-ish to buy. It's not easy to do it correctly. That's where you come in, right? But it's easy to dabble. So talk to me a little bit about what works, what doesn't work, like what is successful on Facebook, and help our agents who are watching, help set their expectations for it, right? I'll give you an example, right? When I talk to agents about like starting a YouTube channel, it's like, man, you got to commit, right? This is a long game. It's not going to happen overnight. You're going to be making videos and you're going to feel like you're just talking to yourself, day after day, right? So is Facebook similar to that? Talk a little bit about expectations.
Yep. So you just said the perfect word, expectations. I'm going to set the expectations the right way, the first, like right now, to your audience. And for everyone that's watching, in the end, doesn't matter what platform you choose, it always starts with the end goal in mind, right? If it is to generate a lead, if it is to get engagement, if it is to push your brand out there, it always starts with there. And the reason why I say that is because let's say, for purpose of here, let's talk about generating leads in business. Well, guess what? Anyone can go out there and spend money. If you don't have the right follow-up process in place, you don't have the right flow in the CRM, if you don't understand the intent of the consumer on that platform, you'll never be successful. So the first thing I always do is I always set the expectations that when it comes to any lead generation you're going to do, whether it's Facebook, Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, Homes.com, whatever, YouTube, you always start with your follow-up process. And I make it this simple. Everyone asks, oh, how many times do you have to call? How many text messages, whatever. In the end, Facebook is a numbers game, so you have to generate a lot of business. So I would personally automate as many of the reach outs as possible, whether it's text message or email. But not text messages that are just like, hey, thanks for signing up for my list. Anything I can help you with? Like, no, engaging, asking questions, right? Have that, because it's going to take 8 to 12 touches. And I have 6 years of data doing this with in-house ISAs and all that shows the majority of the leads get converted or converted into a conversation on average from 8 to 12 touches. Now that could be text message, email, mostly phone call. But just understanding there that put a follow-up process in place for every single lead source that you have, and what can you commit to doing minimal. If you do more, great, but minimally, what can you commit to doing every single time a lead comes in, so or your team knows, or whoever it is, they know, and you know what to inspect. You can inspect what you expect from them. So that's the first thing I always say when it comes to setting those expectations. And then with Facebook specifically, again, we'll use lead generation just to be like to the point. The whole majority of it is, there's other avenues you can go to, or building a brand and video views and all that. But let's talk about lead gen specific. Is understanding you're going to have to generate a crap ton of leads to get one consumer to do business with you. So it is a numbers game. So the conversion rates are lower than, I think the highest I've seen with Zillow is like 12% or something like that, right? You're not going to get there, but that's okay, because the cost to get that one person is the most important, right? It's the cheapest. So understanding those two expectations. One, knowing the intent of the consumer when they're on Facebook, right? They're just in the beginning stages of even thinking about, you're disrupting them, right? Oh, hey, here's a nice home. Let me check it out. Then the second thing, right? So then you know that intent, you know the follow-up process it takes to get there. And then obviously too, knowing that it's going to take a lot of leads to convert into business.
No, that makes a lot of sense. It is definitely a tonnage and numbers game.
Yep.
So if that's true, and I mean, clearly that's true, is and it's going to take 8 to 12 touches. And for those of you watching don't know what that means, like that touch could be an email, it could be a message, it could be a text message, whatever you have permission to do, right? These are exposures, right, to your message, your brand, your offering. If it's going to take 8 to 12 touches, then, and you talk about the process, what does that 8 to 12 touches look like? Is it this sort of linear progression? Are they just more homes, and then you how do you convert somebody from that first touch on to that eighth touch, right? What does that cadence or that process look like?
Yeah, so I'll use it as if you're a single agent and what you should do. We have in-house ISAs with our company and our team here, and so not everyone has the luxury of having somebody to
Sure.
call lead for them. So what we do in the agents that we work with that don't, you know, are, that we coach essentially, what we do is we set up automated text message. So I have a sequence that I built out that's 91 days worth of text messages. It's not 91 individual days, it spans over 91 days. And in the first 35 days, we hit them 18 times just with text messages, right? Because
Yep.
here's the thing that I always teach is with the mentality behind it is it's going to take those touches, but I want to know when I do pick up that phone call and I decide to call somebody, it's a real human being that's interested in what I have to sell or
That's
offer.
right.
So if I was, and I'm doing this right now with my wife, we're setting it up. We're not using the ISA because I want her to get, used to obviously what it takes to convert leads. And then once she gets a couple, then we'll add the ISAs in. But so for her, it's as soon as the lead comes in, 15 minutes later, it says, hey, because we do a lot of the homes list style. There's not really much that you can offer people on the front end. There are creative things that we do, but then the easiest, create a list of homes. Here it is, right? So we text them in, hey, contact name. This is Brett with Remax or Brett with EXP or whoever you're with.
Yep.
Just finished putting together a list of homes for you that you requested on Facebook. Would you like me to text them or email them to you, right? Asking a question to get a response. Most of the time we don't get that. So then after, ask them another question 15 minutes later. That's the first two text messages. It's within 30 minutes. So it's 15 and 15. If they respond, obviously we manually take over. And then if they don't respond after the hour, we send one email. And then from there, it's just, basic stuff, right? But it's always asking questions.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to converting, you have to get them engaged. And then the most important thing that you want to get out of them, you're never going to convert them. Well, 99.9% of the time, you will not convert them over a text message. So the goal is to use the text message, use some automation to engage with them, get them responding to what their time frame and motivation is. And when you have those two things, you know what to say, when to say, how to say it to them.
Interesting.
Right. So our goal when we use text messaging on the front end is to get them to, hey, we know where they're looking, what their price range is if they know it themselves, bedrooms, bathrooms, some sort of motivation. Once we have those things, then we will actually create a list of homes for them specific to what they're looking for. 24 to 48 hours, that's when we pick the phone call. Now we have a reason to follow up with them.
Mm-hmm.
We have a reason for them to pick up the phone. We have a reason for them to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, Randy, this is Brett. Just sent you that list the list of homes the other day. Want to just reach out and make sure that you were able to take a look at those. They say yes. I took a look. Nothing I like. Perfect. I'm going to keep modifying it. Is there anything that you did, that was absolutely off, or is it a good search and just waiting for that right property? Or if they say yes, I got it, but I haven't had time to look at it. Great. What I'm going to do is give you some more time. In the next couple of days, I'll just give you a ring back. If they say no, I didn't get it, then we confirm their email and we resend it to them. right? Again, it's coming with value. That's the most important part.
I I agree with that. It's always about value first. You have to ask the question. Let me ask
Yep.
you a question, and I hope that I can articulate this in the right way, Brett. What's really interesting about something like Facebook marketing is, as we've established, it's a numbers game. It's
Yep.
tonnage, lots of impressions, conversion rates are going to be lower, right? And so there's this like sort of divide between what is a very personal business in real estate, right? Where they're hiring you because they like you, because you have proof of production, right? All of these things. And this sort of seemingly impersonal, like mass marketing kind of a play. And so, what I think is interesting about that is I imagine that it's difficult for an agent who's running ads and they're sending text messages, hopefully through automated systems, right? And they're following up, and the leads aren't converting in as high numbers as their personal experience, which is just meeting people, maybe, right? And so, how do you stay personal? How do you stay energized? How do you treat each one of these as they are a potential customer when you know that you're having to burn through so many? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And so I always talk about, right, you talked about, it's other sources are easier, sphere of influence, all that, right? Just understanding that Facebook is a pillar of your business, right? And it doesn't have to be Facebook, could be Instagram, could be TikTok, could be YouTube, could be whatever.
Yeah.
But that lead source is just a pillar. It's not all of what you do, but just like we talked about the YouTube channel, it's consistency over and over. It's the same with lead generation. You go in and you talked about earlier, a lot of agents just dabble in it. Well, if you just dabble in anything, you'll never be good at it, right? And so the energy comes from those conversations that you see having when it comes to like automation. Oh, like a lot of individuals get burnt out when they use no automation and they pick up the phone and they call the person 10 times. Well, let's take it back 3 times, because that's the average phone call a normal agent makes, is three
Right.
phone calls, and they give up on the lead. When they make those calls, it's one of those things that's like, all right, this is a bad lead, and move on. So when you start using automation, see the text messages, like real conversations happening, that energizes you. Also, another thing one of my mentors talked about is if you know your numbers, how many calls it takes to get a closed deal, or how many text message it takes to get a closed deal, and you track from lead to conversation to appointment set to appointment
Yep.
conducted to a client to escrow into a closed deal. If you know each one of those, you know how many phone calls or text, how many reach outs it takes to get one closed deal. Your average closed deal is $10,000. I know I make X amount of dollars per text message and call that I make to that lead. Right. That's another thing that for me, that was a mindset shift for me, is like, all right, I just made $10. I just made $10. I just made $10. And then essentially, at the end, you will make that $10 per those calls, right? Numbers never lie. So that's one. And then two, have fun with it, right? It doesn't have to be straight lead generation. If you want it to be a human, lead with some content and some branding on the front end, and retarget on the back end with lead generation. Right.
Yeah.
And that's where you have fun with it, where you're creating content, people are seeing you, they're engaging with your posts, and then you're hitting them, hey, and here's my lead generation tactic, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone just
Absolutely.
gets in, yeah, everyone just gets into numbers like, hey, I want to pay money, I want name, phone number, and email. And you're right, it does get, after 2-3 years of doing it, it's like, it's like mind-numbing work, right? So
But
just
you're
understand,
right, Brett.
have fun with
Whatever works for you, right? Like we have a pretty sizable sales team here at List Reports, and I don't run sales, so not as closely as they do, but I look at that funnel and it's really interesting. And I would encourage all of you listening right now to understand that funnel, right? Brett, as you said, you've got the beginning of it all the way through a closed deal. And if you understand each step in that funnel, what the conversions look like, two things happen. One is that immediately it becomes apparent where you need to optimize, right? You look at a massive drop off and you're like, this is where I need to focus. That gives you clarity around that. And two, is ultimately it helps you understand your cost of customer acquisition, which helps you understand how much money you can invest, right? To your point, right? And you can characterize that, Brett, as you said, by saying, hey, wow, every phone call I'm making $10. That's a really cool sort of psychological trick, right? Even though you're not literally making money, you know that the result of those activities is going to generate business. That's a pretty cool thing. I like that. So I would encourage all of you to make sure you understand this funnel. Brett, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yep. No, it's okay. But that's, again, that's where I come back to. You always got to start with your systems and processes first before you spend money, right?
That's
Know
right.
your numbers and track them. That's the number one thing I see agents fail with is they don't track each step of the pipeline. It's like, oh, I generated 5 leads and we converted 1. Okay, what's the in between? But what's the in between there, right? You always have a bottleneck in your business, in your lead flow. There's always somewhere in your business you have a bottleneck, right? But if you don't track things, you'll never know. You don't know where it's at. You can't fix it. And then 18 months go by, you spend 10 grand and you don't make anything. Well, now we got to go back of 18 months worth of data and try to figure out where we should have been tracking that since day one.
It's true. And I'll tell you what, Brett, this frustrates me a lot, but I call it the silver bullet syndrome. And I see so many agents do this where you'll see a post on some Facebook forum, right? And they're like, what do you guys think of, Acme Lead Company, right? And then you go into the comments and it's like, oh, they suck. They're terrible. Oh, they're the best ever, right? Oh, they're terrible. They're the best ever, right? Everybody's looking for a silver bullet. And you have to understand that this business, though there are always opportunities, it's fairly optimized, right? If you look at simply look at this, and Brett, I'm curious to get you to react to this. If I'm an agent, Brett, and you're an agent in Nashville, and I've got a customer here in Southern California who wants to move to Nashville, and I refer that business to you, there's a pretty standard range of commission, right, that you would provide back to me because
Correct.
I've given you an acquired customer. And if that's a quarter to a third of your commission, that's thousands of dollars. Which I should tell you right now is that the cost to acquire a customer is thousands of dollars, right? Or could be thousands of dollars. It's very expensive. So if you're trying out a service and you're like, hey, I spent $100 and this didn't do anything for me, you're thinking about this the wrong way. So I think you agree with me, Brett, but go ahead.
I knew exactly where you're going to when you said like the silver bullet. Everyone's looking for that not everyone. I take that back. Not everyone.
Yeah.
A lot of individuals are looking for a get rich quick. They're looking for the easy route to something. And I'm here to tell you there is absolutely no easy route.
Amen.
If there was an easy route, I would have figured it out. Trust me, I try to figure that stuff out. I would have figured it out before I went broke.
Well, not only that, Brett, if you figured out, you would have kept it all for yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I keep telling people. If that existed, I just keep it all for myself and have the biggest real estate company in the world.
Yeah. And so I always, so we have like, you come work with us, right? It's 3 months minimum because we set the right expectations that it's going to take 3, sometimes 12 months to get that first deal. But here's the thing. It's the database that you're building and you're nurturing and the connections that you're making with that database, right? We do everything from lead generation all the way to literally setting appointments.
That's right.
And it's still not enough. It's still not enough, right? I can generate a lead for you, convert it to an appointment. Here you are already. Like, here it is. You're good. Like, but what do you do after that? And that's where they want these warm leads, and they're willing to give up 50% of their business, or they're 35, 50. I've had people say, "Oh, I'll give you 75% if you give me a lead I can close tomorrow."
That's right.
Just go spend that money and get your own, and you don't have to give it up. And I'm telling you, the data that you're collecting, the database that you're building is worth more than that deal. You want an exit strategy? If you don't have consistent sale, especially in real estate, if you don't have consistent sales from your sphere of influence in your pipeline every single year, you ain't got a business to sell. You are the business.
That's right. That's right. Brett, well, as predicted, right? 35 minutes just goes by. I feel like we just started talking. This happens every single time. I don't know why it still surprises me. Let's end with this. I want to give a recommendation to our agents out there, right? I'm one of the founders of List Reports. I rarely talk about List Reports on this show because value first, right? We have lots of great users out there. You're on this. You have a company that does this. I want people to come and check that out and hire you to do this. But where should people start, right? Is it a fool's errand for them to try to do this on their own? Whatever company they hire, should they really be working with a company, or can somebody do this on their own if they wanted to?
Absolutely. And I own a company that does it 100%. You need to start doing it on your own. And here's why. Is because if you go to a company right now and you decide, hey, I want you to run my marketing for me. One, you don't have a vision of your own marketing, your own lead gen. You don't have numbers to back up if this company's good or not, or if they're getting better results than you. And you don't know you can't inspect what you expect.
Yeah.
Right? So the only way you can do that is by doing it yourself. And here's why I say this is because it's so cheap and so easy. I'm telling you right now, you can turn on if it's just straight up lead generation, you could turn on 2 to 3 ads right now if it's set up properly and let them run for 3, 4, 5, 6 months and still continuously generate business from it. It's not that hard. When you want to optimize and scale it, obviously that's where companies like myself, where you just buy back your time.
Yes.
So if you're an agent right now and you have nothing but time, you don't need to be paying. You need to you could be the least tech savvy. There's enough YouTube videos out there that'll walk you step by step of how to do it. So always recommend individuals starting with it themselves. And then obviously once it becomes too much, you have enough business, you don't have time to manage it, that's when you hire out the business. That's how I've always been like that, always believed in it. Same thing right now. I haven't hired anyone to do my marketing because I got a team that does the day-to-day of stuff, and I have enough time to do my own marketing, and I enjoy it. But at some point, I got 2 businesses now going on to a 3rd one. I'll have to hire it, and it's inevitable.
Absolutely. Brett, well said. I'm going to send a nice thank you note to Camille for introducing us. I really enjoyed this conversation, Brett. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing, this candid feedback on really setting expectations around what advertising, whether it's Facebook or another platform, is going to be like. Thank you for your time today and for sharing with our guests.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. Again, I am thankful to Camille for introducing us as well. I think there'll be definitely a lot more conversations to come.
100% agreed. All right, Brett, we'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you.
All right, agentpreneurs, there you have it. Brett's first time on the show. I guarantee you right now, not his last time on the show. I really enjoyed that conversation. I think a lot of good, really practical takeaways, and I like the way that he summed that up. Look, you can do this, and you get to a point where you want to scale it. You get to a point where you know this, right? Your time is everything, right? And if you look at that time value of money, working with a company like Brett's makes a lot of sense. But as he said, and I love this, he said, get your baseline first. Go test. Get something to be able to compare it to, right? Understand what you can do on your own. Love that feedback. So I hope you learned a lot today about his story, his perseverance, the why that he found, in this case, in his future, now current bride, which is amazing. So find your why, because it's what's going to bring you through. There's a saying I heard, is a strong why will get you through any how. And I really like that a lot. Because there's lots of stuff that's going to come up along the way. So thank you for your time today. Appreciate all of you very much. Until tomorrow, be safe, be healthy, be happy, get after it, and find your why. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.